what's up guys? My name is Zach and today I am driving a 2007 Pontiac Grand Prix GT2. Up front is a 3.8 liter supercharged V6 and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this Grand Prix because I've driven this generation of Grand Prix before. Actually the top trim level with the V8, the GXP. But this has the supercharged 3800, which I didn't even know this car was able to come with. And it's one of my favorite engines. And so I'm excited to share this GM vehicle with you today. I always love driving GMs and I'll share why that is towards the end of the video. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle, whether it's here in Fargo, North Dakota, or anywhere else in the country, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. But let's get back to that 3800 series under the hood. Well, it's a 3.8 liter supercharged V6 making 260 horsepower. Now, there were a couple of engines offered here in this model year for the Grand Prix. You could get a naturally aspirated 3.8 liter V6, same engine, just no supercharger. You could, of course, get this engine or, like I said, the 5.3 liter V8. Now, I love the power and torque of the V8. I think it drives a bit nicer than this car. However, that has something called active fuel management. That is kind of a headache now here in retrospect. So, if you want the reliable and decent powered engine, this is most certainly your best bet. I've also always had somewhat of a kinship with the 3800 because it is the first engine I ever tore down and rebuilt. It's one of GM's best engines ever in my mind. And fun fact, I had a Mazda RX-7 that I blew the rotary engine of, and my first instinct was to replace it with a 3800 series Buick engine. Now, I didn't do that. I ended up swapping to a bigger rotary engine, and if you're a longtime fan of the channel, you'll have seen all of that a long time ago. But that's how much I love this engine. I was willing to swap it into a Mazda RX-7, and so driving it here today is just another wonderful time. Like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed automatic. GM was doing a lot of automatics in this era. It's no shock to anyone. And yes, I wish that there was a manual option. However, if you did want a sporty manual vehicle from GM, there was the Cobalt SS at the time. So, you did have options. The Grand Prix was just not one of them. Last but not least, the Grand Prix is front-wheel drive, as it's shared with all of its W-body siblings. So how does it feel to drive the 3800 supercharged Grand Prix? Well, I think it's a really healthy middle ground between the base and the V8. Like I said, the V8 has a lot more noticeable torque around town, and you feel like the man when driving that. And I'm not saying that you don't driving this. It definitely still packs that punch. It just takes a little bit more effort. You are down about 40 horsepower under the V8. However, I would happily trade those 40 ponies for the confidence of the reliability of this vehicle, and so I'm not mad about it today. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 3 gauges. Off to the left is my tachometer, in the center is my speedometer, and off to the right is my coolant temperature and fuel. On the steering wheel, on the left, we have our skip track 1 through 6 favorites and our band, and off to the right, we have our mute, play, and volume buttons. Off to the left, we have 2 tiny little climate control vents stacked on top of one another, as well as we have our power mirrors, power locks, and power windows on the door. We also do get a latch to get in and out, which is in this giant circle. There's a big circular theme in this interior that you'll see here in a second. Moving into the center, we do have an upgraded speaker up on the dash, as well as we do get this little readout that'll give you tons of great information. Now, right now it's cycling all of the service requirements that I have, but it's a GM, it's fine. But we can switch through a bunch of really cool information, and GM has always been very good about this. Going back to the early 2000s with like the C5 Corvette, they give you a lot of information about their vehicles, and I like that. We have another climate vent to the right of that, and then we have our radio. Pretty typical radio. We do have a CD player, of which this vehicle actually has the original dealership CD that would tell you information about the car. I love finding old relics like this. Really, really cool to see that. It's a personalization instructional CD. Love that verbiage. Down below, we do have our climate controls. We do have auto climate controls as well as dual zone. So really, really nice features here. And we do have heated seats. Now, these buttons have not fared too well over the last couple of years, but I think that this is pretty advanced for its time. 2007 to have dual zone climate and heated seats, of which my '07 Pontiac G6 had neither. Then we get tons of cubby space for lots and lots of pens. Shifter off to left, nothing too crazy here, big and bulky from GM, I totally expect that. Traction control button, and then we have our cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test here in the Grand Prix from 2007, but as we know from the V8 model, it passes with quite flying colors. Then we have the center console, and we'll talk about the seats. The seats are leather. They don't have any interesting stitching or graphics to them, which is fine. It doesn't have to. And they are very comfortable. GM, of course, in this era, pre-recession, which is the last year before the recession, they really knew how to do comfortable seats. After the recession, they gave up on that. That was one of the things that fell through the cracks. But here, I'm enjoying them pleasantly, and I have no complaints. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, so we're in the back of the Pontiac Grand Prix GT2 from 2007, and honestly, it's not as spacious back here as I was expecting. Now, the seat is a little bit further back than normal, but not by much, and my knees are hitting the seat in front of me. My head is coming close to the ceiling, although my head actually sits right below the glass, so it actually does give a little bit of room. However, I would really not like to hit my head on that if I hit a bump. Now, these rear seats do fold down in a 60-40 split, and the front seat actually folds down to form a table for the driver. So, very cool to see that. Overall, not much to see back here, so let's hop into the trunk. All right, around the back of the Grand Prix, we do have a trunk button here on the key fob, so hit it there to release it and pull it the rest of the way up. Tons and tons of space back here. I've also always loved this about my Pontiac G6 when I had it. Pontiac was very, very good about their rear trunk space all the way up until their death. So, very nice to see that. You can fit tons of stuff. That's actually a 3800 Series 2 engine cover, not the engine cover from this car, although it was missing under the hood. Apparently, there's somewhat of a fire hazard, so a lot of owners remove the 3800 Series covers. That's not the right one for this car. That's a different one, so don't worry about that. But here is the trunk of the Grand Prix from 2007. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I really like the look of this car. This is finished in shadow gray metallic, which was a slightly rare color for the Grand Prix of this era, at least for '07 and '08. I think these have also aged decently. I do think that they are a little bit outdated, but for 2007, I mean, any car is going to be. I think they're still relatively handsome, and I don't have any complaints about it. The one thing you will notice is a dented in front fender, and the only reason I point this out is because this is a very, very common issue on this generation of cars and on the W bodies. The doors will actually sometimes catch on the fender and bend it inward. And so if you're trying to buy one of these and the owner says, no, it's never been in an accident, but it does have fender damage, they're actually telling the truth. It actually wasn't an accident, and it actually just harms itself. Something to know. But with all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the 3800 Supercharged Grand Prix from 2007? Well, I've enjoyed my experience with this. I think the Supercharged V6 is a very, very good engine, not only in its reliability, but in its power as well. I really like the Grand Prix as a whole, and so I wanted to talk about why I wanted to review one of these when I've already done so many similar vehicles on the channel. Well, in all honesty, these cars feel like home to me. And to peel back the curtain, as I mentioned at the beginning, I'm filming this video here in Fargo, North Dakota. My only North Dakota review. Came out here to drive this car, and I'm headed back home today. I spent some time last night driving around Fargo, North Dakota, and I noticed something. It's not very unique. It's kind of everywhere USA. It has strip malls like any other town in the Midwest or East Coast. The gas stations are also the general stores like you would find in New Jersey and New York and Connecticut. There's a lot of industry here like you would find in Ohio and Pennsylvania. And that might sound like a bad thing. It might sound like Fargo has no distinct personality, and maybe that's true. But there's also a certain comfort that comes with that. I didn't feel out of place while visiting. I knew kind of how things worked here without having ever stepped foot in Fargo before last night. And that's the glory of of GM products. You kind of know your way around, even if you didn't grow up driving GMs, even if you've never driven a GM product from this era ever before. You get in, pause, there's another one. See, they're everywhere. You get in, you kind of understand it. You get it. It makes sense. It feels like home, even though it's never been home before. And that's taking the good with the bad. Yes, I have ABS and traction control lights screaming at me. But it's like when I go back to New Jersey and I see a fist fight outside a Wawa and I go, I'm home, baby. I'm home. No, the build quality of these cars isn't great. It's not lovely. But there's a certain charm that also comes with that. They're very honest cars. They're not trying to put anything on. They're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes or lie to you and say, I'm really nice, I'm this, I'm that, I'm those. No. And the V6 feels that way too. It's an honest and, in modern standards, a very simple engine that they stuck a supercharger on and will go over 200,000 miles. This car feels like a childhood best friend. And sure, you still get in arguments, you fight over dumb stuff, but that's all about being human. Perfect cars that never miss a beat, they don't have personality. This at least has some type of personality, and whether you want to be friends with it or not, that's up to you, but at least it has one. That is why I love GMW bodies and almost anything GM put out pre-recession. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Dakota for letting me take out his Grand Prix here in North Dakota. Dakota's been awesome to work with. I appreciate him very, very much. He showed me around the vehicle, very knowledgeable and helpful when it came to filming this video. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.